Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Phil Brooks. I am the Director of STEM Workforce Partnerships here at the University City Science Center. It's my pleasure this evening to bring you Steve Wray, who is the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at Econsult Solutions. This evening, you'll have a chance to hear a little bit more about the workforce analysis on cell and gene therapy and connected health, which I'm sure a lot of the folks already on the call were participants in either through the focus groups or you were a part of our advisory board. You'll hear a little bit more about the partners who are involved with the study. And then lastly, and in terms of introduction, a lot of this was featured already through the Philadelphia Business Journal and technically Philly, which we can share links to towards the end of the session. So without further ado, let's kick things off, and I'd like to introduce Steve Wray.
Thanks, Phil. Hold on, do I have the right screen up? Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So thanks, Phil. And again, I'm Steve Wray. I'm a Vice President for Strategic Initiatives at Econsult Solutions. We're an economic consulting firm here in Greater Philadelphia. We had the pleasure of working on this project with a great team of clients. It's always great to have good clients for a project. We worked with the CEO Council for Growth, the Science Center with Phil and Saul, and with the University City District's West Philadelphia Skills Initiative. This project really grows out of an initiative from the CEO Council and all of the partners on a project looking at the industries of cell and gene therapy and connected health. And an initiative designed to help really position Greater Philadelphia as one of the leading regions in the country for those industries. The initiative has been sponsored by 11 anchor institutions who are really supporting this 3-year pilot program with the CEO Council for Growth, and was also funded by the Lenfest Foundation in their work, really looking at how to support and grow workforce opportunities for people in West Philadelphia and in the city of Philadelphia in these emerging industries. The goal for this effort is really establishing a shared vision where Greater Philadelphia is a global hub of research talent, capital, and entrepreneurship in cell and gene therapy and connected health. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means for both of those industries and what they are. But this is obviously a time when we have a lot of focus on what's going on in the healthcare world, and the opportunity here is to see and to understand what Philadelphia's potential is, and how Philadelphia can position itself as a region of leadership with providing job and workforce opportunities for all. The CEO Council is really focused on an initiative to both define Greater Philadelphia's sense of where it is through shared storytelling, support and develop critical facilities that will accelerate the positive economic impact of Greater Philadelphia's position as a leader in these industries, develop a talent strategy based on the assessment of the talent needs, and we're going to talk about that in a second, and then build a scalable ecosystem to support growing and retaining companies, investors, and expertise in the region. The project we're going to talk about is a talent analysis. The idea was to look at the workforce and environmental trends that will influence sector growth, assess the size and scope of the future talent demand and the programs in place to meet it, and identify gaps in the regional education and training systems. This is work that has been led by the 3 organizations, the CEO Council, UCD, and the Science Center, but was also supported by a task force and a working group of leaders from the industry, from healthcare, from academia, and from the economic development community. That convening advisory group is going to be developing an action plan to take some of the ideas that came out of the report and other reports to a real action plan for the region going forward. The real goal of this project, in addition, was to connect talented West Philadelphians to life-changing jobs. The idea is really to connect the jobs that are emerging in West Philadelphia, the jobs that are emerging in gene therapy and healthcare and others, through the work of the Science Center, through the work of the West Philadelphia Skills Initiative, and to prepare those residents for employment success and the jobs of the future. We're trying to expose students to future-focused career pathways, provide foundational educational and support programming through Drexel's Dornsife Center for Neighborhood Partnerships, and expand the offerings of the West Philadelphia Skills Initiative to include these new sectors. So the idea here is to better understand what the future job needs are going to be so that we can develop better workforce development programs to meet those needs, both serving the interests of the industry, but also serving the interests of Philadelphia residents and making sure that they're included in the growth that these industries possess. So we were engaged really towards the end of 2019 to undertake this work. Again, as we said, an independent assessment of the future workforce and talent needs of the cell and gene therapy and connected health industries. We had an advisory board. We did primary research through surveys, interviews, and focus groups. We used secondary sources. We'll talk a little bit about this, using LinkedIn Talent Insights and Burning Glass Labor Insights, two really powerful workforce data tools to both size the current labor pool and employer demand in the greater Philadelphia area. We also looked at what was going on in competitor regions, and using all of that information, we estimated the projected growth of the cell and gene therapy industry in greater Philadelphia based on scenarios developed by the focus group discussion, secondary research, and survey data. One caveat, and I think this is going to be the story of any research project that is coming out now. All this research was completed prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, so all the data was prior to the pandemic. But in reality, we don't think that changes the story too much. Could be impacts on things like funding to help expand companies, but clearly there's going to be an increased focus on healthcare and the need to develop innovative strategies to provide public health for our region. We've also seen through the connected health side of the equation, connected health being telemedicine, being the work that's happened. The COVID crisis has actually accelerated the need for working on the connected health side, as we've seen with social distancing, with physical distancing requirements. More and more of our healthcare is being delivered via telemedicine, both to protect the folks in the hospitals and protect the citizens themselves. During this crisis, we've seen regulatory relief, regulatory relaxations for using connected health, and which has really positioned that industry to grow in explosive ways as people have learned and adapted to the changed realities that we've been facing. So let me talk a little bit about the cell and gene therapy landscape in greater Philadelphia. Prior to the COVID crisis, we were really seeing a really strong environment. In 2019, we had the region's first life sciences IPO for Cabaletta Bio. Century Therapeutics launched with $250 million in financing commitments. And Roche finalized its $4.3 billion acquisition of Spark Therapeutics. In 2020, so far, we've seen Passage Bio raise $250 million through its IPO. Innovis Bio raised $14 million from its IPO at the end of January. And Amicus Therapeutics officially opened its Global Research and Gene Therapy Center of Excellence in University City. We've also seen Roche actually Spark Therapeutics look at additional buildings in University City beyond its main headquarters. These companies, cell and gene therapy companies, CMOs, and university hospitals are based all over the greater Philadelphia region, Bucks County, Montgomery County, Chester County, but with the vast majority of the opportunities in the city of Philadelphia, and particularly focused in the University City area, but also with new and emerging clusters down at the Navy Yard and in other parts of the city. What we wanted to do with this study as we were looking at it is to start with where are we now and to understand the current labor pool and employer demand. And to do this, we used Burning Glass data. Burning Glass is a data set that basically scrapes all of the online job openings in the country What we were able to do was focus in on the online job openings from cell and gene therapy companies in the greater Philadelphia region, look at all of those job openings, understand the skills and the talents that people were looking for, and try to understand the demand side. What were the skills in biotechnology, immunology, project management and biotechnology, gene therapy, manufacturing and biotechnology, quality control and biotechnology, scheduling and biotechnology, other types of specific programs, looking at all of those skills. These were all reflected in the job openings and the job postings by those companies. And then compare that with the supply side. And on the supply side, we looked at LinkedIn talent insights and looked at the LinkedIn profiles of people in the greater Philadelphia region to understand how many people had those skills listed in their skill sets. And what you see with this is when we have an upward slope, that's a place where there is more supply than the demand on that side of the equation. And what that means is that, for example, in a region as rich with healthcare and biotechnology and pharmaceuticals as this region has, we have a lot of people with those skill sets. And what we're able to meet is the skill sets of the demand for the jobs in those cases. Where we were lacking was in gene therapy, people with specific skills in gene therapy, scheduling and biotechnology, and batch records in biotechnology. So these are areas where there's a potential need. Oftentimes these were jobs that were associated with data analytics. And so there's opportunities to grow. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But what this really tells you is that this region is rich with talent. And for the current labor pool and the current demand, we've been able to meet most of the needs of those companies. But as we look to the future, our goal in this project was to also look out into the future and understand what's going to be the future demand for employees. To do that, we based on the interviews and the focus groups and the analysis that we did, we created 4 scenarios for growth based off of really 2 big pivot points. One, barriers to entry. These could be regulatory, these could be financial. Are there high barriers to entry or low barriers to entry? So these are on the left and the right-hand side. And looking at the top and the bottom, our ability to provide the talent, a limited specialized talent pool or a diverse sustainable talent pool. And based on that, we looked at 4 scenarios. The upper left-hand corner is a shrinking pie scenario. We don't think this one is very likely. This is a scenario with very limited talent pool and very high barriers to entry for the industry. Really, in this case, the industry fails to take off. The research activity at the universities and hospital continues, but is very limited. And the employment opportunities really benefit only those with college or graduate degrees. So we don't see an expansion of those industries from that. Over in the upper right-hand corner, we have what we would call the status quo. Still a limited specialized talent pool, but lower barriers. Here you have a strong research base, slow business growth. The greater Philadelphia region kind of remains a secondary market, not a primary market. And the employment opportunities, again, benefit only those with college and graduate degrees, with a few exceptions for those in workforce training and job placement. But where we see the opportunity are in the 2 bottom quadrants. On the left, a leading R&D hub. This is taking where we are and accelerating it and seeing more research being done, more development of ideas, but not quite the going to the full manufacturing and the integrated manufacturing within the region. So Philadelphia becomes a growing center. We have more venture capital investment, with more federal funding, higher levels of commercialization. But the manufacturing help happens elsewhere in this case. So the employment growth would mostly benefit with people with college and graduate degrees, but with considerable exceptions for office support opportunities. And what that means is that as the companies grow, you have more and varied different types of jobs, not just the jobs in the labs, but jobs that are associated with corporate functions, with communications, with other factors that go along with larger companies. The far right quadrant, where we become a fully integrated commercialization and manufacturing hub, in this case, Philadelphia is really one of the global capitals for gene and cell therapy research and therapy production. We'd have a high startup rate, existing companies growing, with others relocating here because of the cluster that's been developed. The growth of the business activity and the size of the companies means that we're employing people at all educational levels. From even within the highly specialized manufacturing, there would be more technician jobs, more specific jobs that may not require a full 4-year degree. We would see more collaboration among private firms, universities, and others on workforce training and job placement. So the opportunity there is that you're really building out an industry here with all aspects of the ecosystem, and that gives you an opportunity to grow companies to scale and really accelerate the job development. Based off of those, we were able we did projections for employment growth on the 2 lower quadrants, the leading R&D hub and the commercialization hub. On the leading R&D hub, the scenario is proportionate with current levels of growth in the industry in Greater Philadelphia. What we see on the mid-range prediction yields a 35% growth in employment over the next 10 years. You know, that high estimate projects a 54% growth. That's about 7,400 jobs over the next 10 years. The low prediction only anticipates 16%, but these are still all great numbers, from 5,700 all the way up to 7,400 for the leading R&D hub scenario. But what does that mean in terms of the types of jobs? It's projected that those working in research and development will make up a smaller proportion of overall employment as other jobs in these companies grow. You know, what we're seeing is growth in occupations other than research and development. And when that happens, the percentage of individuals with advanced degrees would decline, while those with bachelor's or master's level education would increase. In this case, where we see a lot of that growth is in business operations professionals, including HR, accountants, business managers, and IT, and those would increase by about 5 percentage points. So it's not that the jobs are shrinking at the PhD level. What we're seeing is the jobs in all the other categories would be growing. And so as a total share of the total jobs, we would see less jobs in the higher end of the workforce, at the higher end of the skill level. When we look at the commercialization and manufacturing hub scenario, that presupposes that the therapy manufacturing will locate within the Philadelphia region and that we're going to see really extensive growth. What that means is that the mid-range projection means we're almost doubling the size in employment by about 9,400 jobs over the next 10 years, with the high estimate seeing over 11,000 jobs or 136% growth over the same time period. Even at the low end, we're anticipating a 56% increase in employment. With that, again, we would see, what we would see here is that the manufacturing jobs anticipated to increase from 25 to 33% of the total sector, while business operations grows as well. As employment grows in the manufacturing and operations, the percentage of individuals with advanced degrees would decline, similar to what we saw in the leading R&D hub scenario, while those with bachelor's or master's level education would increase as a proportion of the total industry. What we then have is a workforce across all scales and skills within these jobs as the companies really grow to scale. So as we look at this, let me focus in on the key takeaways. Starting up in the upper left, cell and gene therapy and connected health startup growth in Greater Philadelphia is really one of the primary drivers of the rapid development and maturation of the region's innovation ecosystem. What that's going to mean is that to attract talented workers, startups must be able to explain their distinct value proposition offered by working in an emerging, fast-growing industry. That's one of the things we heard was that for too many people, they don't quite understand what it means to be in a startup and the opportunities that are there, but also, you know, some of the risks. And so to attract those talented workers, we're going to need to do a better job of making that case. We also know that the Philadelphia region's pharmaceutical companies are an exceptional source of resources. It's a great base to build off of, but what we heard in our discussions was that those with a pharma background still are going to need some level of training in order to fully prepare for the positions that are becoming available in the cell and gene therapy world. They're different in terms of the manufacturing process. They're different in terms of some of the requirements on the research side. And we're going to, in some ways have to do some retraining and upskilling of folks in those industries. But it's a great place to start with. We already have some skills there. Roles like manufacturing technicians, particularly within contract management or contract manufacturing organizations, may increase in demand as technological innovations allow for the growth in therapy manufacturing. As more technology comes in, we're going to have more technician opportunities. One thing that we heard, and that this is a very important part, is that we're seeing a positive feedback loop in the Philadelphia region around the cell and gene therapy workforce. And what that means is that for a long time, Philadelphia has been a place where it might have been risky to come here. When you have not as many companies or not as many opportunities, taking that one job can be a risk, because if that doesn't work out, what are you going to do next? What we're seeing is that more people willing to take the risk to come to Philadelphia to work with one of our really exciting cell and gene therapy companies, because they know that if something happens within that opportunity, there are going to be other opportunities here within the Philadelphia region that they can move into. When we see this growth, what we're really excited about is that we see more opportunities for a diverse workforce from multiple education and skill levels. In addition to the scientific research background, what we're going to see is firms requiring workers with backgrounds in finance, information technology, legal services, human resources, and general operations. One of the opportunities for higher education institutions in this region will be to develop specialties in this industry within those disciplines, so that Philadelphia, as we grow, really has the opportunity to accelerate. And in the last, but really not least, maybe this actually should have been one of the top findings, is that we see real opportunities with data science and data analytics, and that works in both cell and gene therapy and in the connected health side. And what that means is that the opportunity to really both educate folks who are already interested in data analytics. Data analytics is one of those fastest growing majors and interests in our higher ed institutions. This is an opportunity to both make them more aware of the opportunities in the healthcare side and really focus some of the learning in those disciplines for the emerging needs that are going to be happening in Greater Philadelphia. Bottom line, we're really excited and bullish about these industries in Greater Philadelphia. Obviously, there's going to be more focus on healthcare innovation. We think that's good for this region. If there is the opportunity to provide the financing to allow companies to grow, we think this has real potential. Glad to answer any questions. Let me turn off the screen sharing. Phil, if you want to jump in with any comments, but glad to answer any questions. Just raise your hand if you have something.
Hi there, Steve. Thanks a lot. It's Shane Williams from Century Therapeutics here.
Oh, thanks, Shane.
No, I really appreciate it. It's very comprehensive, and pending COVID-19, I think we've got a really great foundation to really capitalize and build on what the expertise we have here. I think my question would be, you said a bit about kind of sort of, I think about the CMC roles, people in documentation and kind of the, not scientific development, but more the manufacturing. Yeah, I think that's really especially interesting. I see a lot of brain trust here around the scientists, but not so much on people who are experts to take it into the commercial level afterwards. So, I'd be interested to kind of get a sense around what incentives there might be for that, or, any overall thoughts around how we could bolster that.
Well, I think we'll call it the good news is that just about every region in the country is in the same position. We haven't seen the manufacturing side take off yet, but that means the competition is going to be high for that. who are starting to look at incentives. I'm not quite sure what that looks like yet. It might be, I know Claire Greenwood is on and Saul's on, but I think what we're going to have to make sure is that we're paying attention to what's going on around the country to stay competitive. And that's not just a Philadelphia question, that's a Pennsylvania question. Pennsylvania as a state is going to have to be involved in this and understand what the opportunity is.
Yeah, sounds good to know. I agree. I think there's this is the a must-have for us here. So good to hear.
Yeah.
Steve, there is a question in the chat.
Yeah, I saw the report is available. It's available on both the CEO Council website and on Econsult's website. We can send the link out maybe afterwards. Does that work, Wray? Yeah.
And this is Saul Behar. We'll also make sure it's available on the Science Center website as well.
Yeah. Other questions? Other comments? We've got some experts out here. Anything we may? I will tell you that we did 12 slides. There's 65 pages worth of information, including, actually, I think one of the more interesting things that's in there is Philadelphia stacking up very well against some of our competitor regions in the talent competition. Where we used to think we always were losing talent outside the region, this is a case where Philadelphia has been stacking up pretty well.
Steve, this is Tom Dalfo.
Hey, Tom.
Just a quick question: is there any particular piece of sort of infrastructure, and I mean very specific infrastructure to the industry, that would help support or catalyze either the growth on the R&D hub side or the manufacturing side? So we've been looking at a lot of work related to the cell and gene therapy, and are there things like a cryo storage facility or things like that may be challenging to do in and of themselves because there isn't enough mass, but if one of those were to sort of get developed, would it have sort of gravitational force and help attract more businesses or allow the businesses that are here to leverage their real estate and their investment even more efficiently?
I'm gonna let maybe Claire, are you still there?
Yeah.
You wanna jump in on that one? Because that's kind of the parallel report to the workforce needs one.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, and certainly Shane or others who are in the industry can comment as well. And Tom, we've been working with folks on your team on this question over the last year or so. I think the four quadrants to reach the sort of the most aggressive growth strategy, I think one of the critical pieces is going to be the manufacturing capacity, not just at the commercial scale, but the process development and early kind of clinical manufacturing capacity. So that is something that I think, because that's a challenge in really across the country, that if you read or in the industry, I'm sure it's because it's new, there's just not a lot of that capacity anywhere. So I think that's really an opportunity that, we continue to explore with I know you and Kate and Anne and others at PIDC. How could we really carve out the physical facility infrastructure that would make this region be a more attractive place for these kinds of organizations, and speed the scale of the smaller companies, which is really the kind of early clinical and process development piece.
And Claire, I would think, given maybe some of the potential financial challenges as a result of COVID, thinking about that collaboratively could be an interesting opportunity here. There may be, we may be looking at more kind of shared facilities or other things to help accelerate that growth until companies have gotten to the scale where they might, might be able to develop it themselves?
Yeah, we're since the initial analysis that we did in collaboration with PIDC, that was done by a group called Ninigrit, really, I think, answered that first question, sort of what is really the choke point, or what's most critical, and how could we create some competitive advantage. The work we've done over the last 10 months or so has been to try to move forward the concept of a shared facility that would not be probably of commercial scale, but the earlier stage process and clinical manufacturing capacity that small companies need to be able to get to that pivotal trial. So it is absolutely, the idea would be an asset for the community for scaling companies, and not one organization exclusive. And I did see, Christy, I see your note. I think what we'll need to do is to share with folks after this. Saul, I don't know how to ensure that we can get the full report out to maybe the participants who've registered on the call, if that's something we'd like to do.
Yes, we can do that. Sorry.
Any other thoughts? Questions?
Thank you all very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye, Phil.
Thanks.
Bye, Steve.